Welcome to Fifth and State, your inside look at everything Garland, unscripted. Join Mayor Dylan Hedrick dive into the topics shaping our city. Let's get started.
Hello, Garland. Welcome back to the Fifth and State podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of how Garland works. I'm Mayor Dylan Hedrick, and today we have a very special guest. We're joined by our Director of Planning and Development, Nabila, to talk about how Garland plans, guides, manages development, everything from new businesses to housing to redevelopment, long-term city growth. So, Nabila, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I want to jump right into it. First, I always like to start off with kind of introduction, get to know you type of person. I'm a civil engineer. I've been doing land development my whole career. I want to know how you got into it, because how I got into it was just as a little kid, I loved playing with Legos. I would build cityscapes and all kinds of trains and roadways and buildings with my Lego sets. And now it turned into a real life career where I actually get to build with brick and concrete and steel for a living. So how did you end up as in the planning field?
So, first of all, thank you for having me. I am originally from Bangladesh. It's a developing country in South Asia. So lack of planning over there is what got me interested in what planning looks like, what orderly development looks like. Obviously, there are very limited resources. There are very limited elements to make things work. So that's what got me into thinking, how can I learn how to make it better? And that's what got me into, and obviously at that time I may not have known what urban planning is, but to see orderly development, to make sure people have the amenities, people have things that they need for their quality of life. That's what made me think, okay, this is something that I want to explore. And the more I learned about planning, the more I learned how much impact planning has on people's day-to-day life. That's what got me fascinated, and that's why I'm here today.
Well, we're glad to have you here in Garland. So how did you end up all the way from Bangladesh all the way to Garland? Tell us a little bit about that story.
So my bachelor's is in urban and regional planning from Bangladesh. And after that's what got me a lot of theoretical background on what other countries are doing, what we couldn't do over there because of, despite having the willingness, there were lack of resources, lack of support from the government, things like that. So I wanted to come somewhere where planning is practiced in the day-to-day life the way it's meant to be. It's incorporated in local government. It's incorporated in people's day-to-day life. So I decided to come here for my master's degree. I went to UTA to get my master's in city and regional planning. And after that, I was a private consultant for a while, got to work with a lot of different communities. And that's when, again, I learned the context. I learned how something that works in one community may never work in another community, and really got my bearing on planning equals to context. And again, that's what got me into, okay, I want to work for one community. I want to be emotionally invested. I want to be emotionally attached to that community. And that's when I switched to the public sector. Before coming to Garland, I did work for Arlington, Dallas, and Argyle was just before I came to Garland. So all cities of different scales. And again, that's what kind of shaped me into who I am today. I got humbled by every single community that I work for and the uniqueness that every single one of them has to offer. And now that I'm here in Garland, I learn about this community every day and, again, get humbled every day by how unique a community could be, where their history is, where the background, why people want things that they want, and like to help people having all that background, just help them live their best lives in Garland.
Yeah, well, that's certainly what we want to help them do. And, right before we're recording this, you and I were just in a meeting with a developer coming out, talking about his future development, what he wants to have. And the first step usually in the development process is to go to your department. Mm-hmm. Explain that process. If I've got a great idea for a new whatever it is in Garland, mm-hmm. how do I get that into reality?
So I see planning as the central player in any development effort that happens not just in Garland, for many cities. So the first question someone has to ask, what's my first step to do it? Sometimes it's zoning. Sometimes it's site permit. Sometimes it's building permit. You being a civil engineer, you know all about it. But for a general resident, they may not have an idea. My husband doesn't have an idea. If he needs to pull a fence permit, he'd be like, what? So that's our role to kind of tie it all together. That's why we have the FIT meeting, which stands for Feasibility, Inquiry, and Timeline. And it's not just planning. Planning is the department that facilitates it, but we bring in all the applicable departments during that meeting, which is development engineering. We have building inspection, we have fire, we have parks and rec. So all those departments have reps there sitting. Some may have something to say, some may not have anything to say about that development, but we want to give a developer or a resident or anyone who needs to come to Garland for a development project, we want to give them a comprehensive overview about the process, and then we want to give them a comprehensive overview of the standards that we have that they will be required to adhere to. And we try to do it in a very, very friendly, and we understand the context. Sometimes people may not have an idea where to start, and that's what the FIT meeting does for them.
And I've been a part of those meetings on the private developer side as well, and you guys do a great job here in the city. I know you work with a lot of different levels of even the very professional developers down to the mom and pop who just have no clue what they're doing in the process.
Yes, sir. And it is our job to make it, whoever they are, it's our job to make sure we are there to provide them information and help them through the process, depending on where they are. If it's a mom and pop who may not have ever done a zoning change, we take that extra step to make sure they understand why it's being required, why it's, for some people, it may feel like, oh, it's just another step. I have to go do all that. But we take our time to make sure they know why it's there, why they need to get buy-in from their neighbors, why all of this is connected to the long-range vision that the city has.
Well, let's take a step back then to that long-range vision. Zoning plays a huge part in it. They're coming to you for zoning. Can you explain what zoning is to the people who may not be familiar with?
I define zoning as the law of the land.
Other than the police law of the land, where you speed and you get a ticket for that?
No,
it's a little different, right?
It is a little different. It is zoning determines what you can or cannot do on your property in terms of if you want to develop. What kind of building can you develop? What kind of use can you have? What kind of setbacks? Like how far off does the building need to be from the street? What type of landscaping do you need to put in? How many parking spots do you need to provide? What kind of screening do you need to put up? All those aspects of development are governed through zoning. So it does play a very important role.
So why do we have those? This is Texas. I own the land. Why? I should be able to build whatever I want, right?
That's your perspective when you're the landowner.
Right,
but
exactly,
when you're the
landowner.
neighbor, you want to make sure whoever's building next to you, they're building according to the rules. They're building something that you can live with as a neighbor, and the city can take pride in how the city is being built.
And it's really trying to balance the community interests, the economic vitality, the long-term needs of both the developer who's putting up the capital to do this and the residents around him, the whole city. You got to balance all those different competing interests.
Absolutely agreed. And the other piece that is, if we didn't have any zoning, if we just let people do whatever they wanted to do because it's their property, I want everyone who's hearing to imagine what that may look like if we didn't have that process where we can hear people say, oh, I don't want this use next to me, or I don't want this use in the city. Sometimes we get letters that come from residents that don't even live nearby a project that's being proposed, but they're interested in the city. They want the city to be built in an orderly manner, and that's why they send us their responses. They send us letters saying, I don't want this. So I think that input process is just so important in the planning world, where the community has a direct hand in shaping their own future.
And I've seen both sides too. I used to live in Houston, and Houston is famous for not having any zoning at all. So I've come from both worlds in that. So what kind of development requests does the city see most often? Residential, commercial? What do we see?
We see a combination of both. We being 97% built out, we also get a lot of redevelopment projects. Something may have been a use that is not continuing anymore. So that land has, like, for example, the zoning case that we had last night, it was a non-operational car wash that has just been there for a long, long time and became blight for that community. Now someone wants to come in, demolish that car wash, and build something else. So something like that, those examples are pretty often those type of requests. But the land that we have left that is still greenfield, where new development can happen, I think we get a pretty good mixture of residential and commercial.
Mm-hmm. I know people complain that we only see one type of development. All you guys are building is car washes, or all you're building is multifamily or something like that. But it's oftentimes what the market brings to us, because the city isn't necessarily responsible for, hey, we want to develop and put the taxpayer money into a new place. We might partner sometimes, but it often takes the private developers coming to us.
It does. A lot of it is governed by the market, and the market sometimes knows a little better where the needs and wants are, not just for that particular community, but for the entire region, because we don't operate in vacuum. We're also part of a bigger region, which is DFW Metroplex. So the market does determine a lot of that, but that's why we have zoning. That's where we don't just accept whatever proposals come into us. We have a way to regulate and make sure this is something that does fit into the city's vision that the decision makers have set forward.
And the citizen input is always an important part of that. On the council, we get letters and we post it online. We have signs that go up for any type of zoning change that happens. There's multiple ways to give feedback to the council members before they take a vote. And even a step before that, it has to go through the Plan Commission as well.
They do. So Planning Commission work as the recommending body. So it is a two-step public hearing process. And that is to make sure the community is being heard. They get notified of what's happening because it's their city. They have a right to know.
Sure. And I served on the Plan Commission for several years before I joined City Council, so it's true. I've seen projects come through there. They get recommendations, they get voted down, and they'll change for the better oftentimes before they get to the final approval at the council level.
Absolutely, because again, staff is there to make sure, hey, are the regulations being met? But also, it's also our goal to make sure we can present a project in front of Plan Commission and City Council, regardless of our recommendation. Our recommendation could be approval or denial, but we want to make sure the project that's being presented is in its best form as much as possible.
And I think staff does a great job. I hear from developers frequently, and they often say it themselves, that thank you, staff, for working through us and being so easy to work with. So we certainly appreciate you and your staff.
Thank you so much. We try our best, and we're always open for input.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump up to the comprehensive plan. This is something that we're doing in the city now. It's been, we have hired a consultant to really look at what is the best means of development and zoning for going forward into the future. This is something that the city does periodically, every 10, 20 years or so. They update the comprehensive plan. We're doing that now. So what does that mean for Garland?
So comprehensive plan in general is the long-term vision that we have been talking about. Comprehensive plans are done with extensive community outreach. Y'all have seen we have been out there. There have been surveys. We have tried to work with the communities. There is a CPAC, which is an advisory committee, which are representatives of the community who are involved in the comp plan. So the comprehensive plan, to me, is the guide that eventually informs zoning. You'll hear me, anyone who's watching, they'll hear me say in any zoning case, whether or not this project complies with the comp plan vision or not. That is often the basis of our recommendation, which is why it's so important to have the comprehensive plan up to date and modernized, because the one that we have right now is from 2012. Obviously, a lot have changed since then. That's why we're doing a new one. And once we have the new one, it will be our responsibility again to make sure that every single development decision is tied to that vision that the community wanted, the decision makers wanted. And it's our job to safeguard that and make sure it transforms into zoning.
And that comp plan is a great tool for helping us. All right, should this development work there? But also the problem is, as soon as it's done, it's already outdated because the world changes. With the one that was in 2012, no one could have foreseen COVID-19 happening or anything that happened in the past, 13 years since that was finished. So it's a tool that we use, but then it's not the be-all, end-all necessarily, because you mentioned earlier they have the market forces and other things that come into play.
It is. So the comp plan should also be a living document. Yes, it's good practice to update it every 5 to 10 years, but it's also not uncommon to have yearly evaluation of the comprehensive plan and make sure that if there's a component that doesn't apply anymore, City Council, Plan Commission, and staff take a look at that and get that up to date, because we do want to make sure our zoning and development decisions are made with that vision and compatible with that vision.
Mm-hmm. So where are we in the process? I know we've been working on it for quite a while now. Is it almost finished? When can residents expect to see it? Is there still opportunities for input?
There is still opportunities for input. We have done the extensive community survey part in the front end of it. We have the final piece, which is the mapping tool that's still out there, where someone can go in, they can pick a topic. If, for example, there's a location in town, in the city, where they have issues with the streets and they have a suggestion of what can be done there, they can provide that input in an online mapping tool showing exactly where they want that recommendation to take place. So that's still out there. In terms of where
can they find that briefly? Do you know? Is it on our city website?
It is on the city's website, yes, sir. And then the consultant is diligently working on finishing up the draft with all the input that we have received. But before finalizing any draft, this most recent mapping tool input will also be considered. Currently, the adoption date is set to be May of 2026. Staff expects to receive a draft in December, and depending on how many back and forth we have, we want to make sure that when the community sees it, it's in its very best shape possible. So I would anticipate February, March, but that could change too.
All right, so final adoption is about 6 months away then.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Very exciting.
So in addition to this comp plan, we do these smaller area plans, Harbor Point plan, Medical District plan, Downtown plan, I-30 corridor. We have all these smaller ones. Tell us how that works into the process.
So the comp plan, to me, is the 30,000-foot view. It is a really holistic vision for the entire city. But sometimes there are areas within the city that need more strategic input, more strategic focus, so that things can happen within that area and kind of come out of that, not come out of the comp plan, but have a more detailed version of the comp plan in those small area plans. So one of the that we are currently working on is the Harbor Point area plan. It is the Lakeside, Southside area plan, where I always see it as we have the lake. Before coming to Garland, I wasn't aware that Garland has Lakeside. And I think it's a huge asset. It could be a big economic development driver. It could be a big destination matter. There could be wayfinding. There could be branding. And the decisions and strategies and recommendations of that scale cannot be captured in the comprehensive plan, because then it'll be a 5,000-page document and wouldn't mean much. So for those, we have to kind of detail it in a small area plan, and we can identify what that small area looks like. And in Harbor Point, we have. So those are for those strategic focus areas. It could be that area having a unique asset, or it could be that area just needs attention. it's old and dilapidated, and it just needs more focus. And that's why we want to come up with a plan.
And oftentimes on council, we use those documents to set policy. It's oftentimes overlaps our TIF boundaries.
It does.
Certainly along a medical district, I-30 corridor. It also sets where we want to invest our bond funding and what propositions we're going to put on. Harbor Point was its own proposition in this past bond that passed in May. So it dictates policy to this. We use those plans to say this is potential areas that we see as a council that we want to focus our attention and our taxpayer dollars on.
Definitely. All of these are meant to be tools for mayor and city council in your critical decision-making process so that you're not having to guess things. You have a solid foundational document to base your decisions off of.
Mm-hmm. One more study we're doing right now is the housing study. Can you talk a little bit about that? We had a few presentations already to city council, but I'm fascinated to see that because housing and affordability of housing, it's a major issue in our city.
Yes. So the housing study is a citywide study, but it obviously focuses on the housing stock, the current housing stock. What's missing? For example, we have these type of housing, we have these type of housing. What do we not have? We want to be a community of choice. If anyone wants to move to Garland, do we have options to provide for them in terms of housing? If not, why do we not have that and how to bridge that gap? That's what the housing study is about. That's what the recommendations will talk about. And again, it'll be another tool for city council, mayor and city council to take into consideration when you're thinking of funding, when you're thinking of which area needs a little bit more attention in terms of improvements, home improvements, grants, things like that. So I think it's going to be a great tool for all of us once it's done.
So where do you see the future of planning in Garland? Where do you see that going? Is it more plans? I know the comprehensive plan will be a big part of that. But what do you see as the future?
Obviously I'm a planner, so I love
You have a plan already, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes, I have the plans, but I'm also very much a real world planner. I do not like to dwell in imaginations. I like plans. I like ones that are implementable. To me, a good plan is the one that does not ever have to sit on the shelf. We can take the plan once it's adopted, and day one, we can work on implementing it. So to me, it's such an exciting time for planning in Garland. We have the comprehensive plan, and again, the comp plan does will have a lot of drafts and a lot of guidance on where development and redevelopment focuses would need to go. And once for example, we started talking about the FIT meetings, we want to refer to the comp plan and make sure when we are talking to people during the FIT meeting, we are taking into consideration the recommendations that are placed on the comprehensive plan. If there is a certain recommendation that we can help the applicant with to improve their project, that will be my day-to-day operational interest of the comprehensive plan, but also the small area plans and whatever we can do to help both the private developers, but also the city projects to inform those decisions, inform those projects to make sure it all lines up with the vision that we put in the comp plan and the small area plans. I would consider that a successful planning scene for City of Garland.
That's great, and hopefully the council can help implement that vision that you have there, and we're so happy to have you in Garland working on that. And I know you've recently won an award. Can you tell us about that? I'll make you talk about yourself here for a moment.
Well, this is a recognition that it's a nationwide recommendation nationwide recognition that the Planning Peeps community provides every year.
Is that what they're called, the Planning Peeps community? Is that what you call it? Okay.
Yes, that's what they're called.
Yeah.
So they pick a few people. I don't think it's like 40 under 40 because there's not 40 people on the list, but someone has to nominate a planner, and then they have a judging panel that they go through to vet them to make sure they are indeed eligible to be a top planner. So the one that I received is a top planner under 40. Very humbled by it and the way the city celebrated it. To me, that tells so much about the city. There are cities who may not have cared, may not have really put attention to that kind of matter. But this is a city that in my short time here, I've seen Garland celebrates its employees. Garland celebrates its residents. And this is such an amazing time to be here, and I'm so glad to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you. And again, congratulations on
Thank
that.
you,
That's
sir.
wonderful to have you here. And we hope to have you here for many more years forming and planning Garland. And I'd love now to get into some resident questions. So first question we have is, could a form-based code be implemented in Garland? And first, explain for everyone what that means.
So the regular zoning that we implement is, we call it Euclidean zoning. It's very much based on use, what use can or cannot go into a certain piece of land. A form-based code takes a different approach where it's not about the use, it's about the built environment. It's about how the building looks like. How does the building interact with the street? How does the overall setup of that site contribute to the area? So it doesn't focus on the use itself, it focuses on the built environment more. Yes, so in our downtown, we don't have full form-based code, but what we have for our downtown, we have a separate zoning section for our downtown, and that is very much inspired by form-based. So yeah, in our special areas, we can definitely look into having form-based code, which is already in place for example, in downtown.
And that's great. And that makes those places just more walkable, more pedestrian friendly, those kind of elements that planners love.
That's exactly what form-based code is about.
Yeah. Another question, I'll take this one, is, can anything be done about the old strip malls that make our city look like slums? Well, it takes someone willing to invest in our city. And on city council, thankfully to the voters as well, Proposition B, we have some financial means now to partner with developers. And we already have a great example of the shopping center where North Garland Branch Library is, that what we've done there to renovate that space, we work with the private developer. He put in some money, the city put in some money to help the library, and now we have a beautiful new shopping center that has a complete facelift, and there's outdoor seating area and murals up, and it really has made a difference for that old worn-out shopping center.
I think that's a great example. So it takes time. Of course, it takes time to find those partnerships. Mm-hmm. It needs the partnership with the property owner himself, and then having some private developer and seeing if the city can chime in some way to make it happen. So it takes time, but that example is just perfect, that it can happen, it will happen. It may take a little bit of time.
And one more question we had. This one is our favorite topic on City Council. Why do we have so many apartments? Why is another apartment being built? We already have so many people living here.
So I will kind of talk a little bit about a recent Senate bill that the 89th state legislature passed. Currently, the way that works, why there are apartments. If the land is not zoned for apartments today, or in the past, we would not let apartments happen. So there would have to be a zoning process. They'll have to come, ask for a zoning that allows multifamily, and that will trigger the resident input. People can come in, they can chime in, and City Council will eventually have to vote regarding whether or not that multifamily project can happen. Recently, in the 89th legislature, which was started being effective September 1st, 2025, any land within the city that is zoned non-residential, industrial is an exception, but anything else, neighborhood service, neighborhood office, community retail, all those zoning districts, the state made it so that multifamily can come in here, and we're going to have to allow it with no zoning process.
That's by right.
That's by right. So based on that, I'm sad, not sad, but I can say that there will probably be more projects that the state enabled private developers to come in and have that by right multifamily development on a piece of land. But the city will strategically make decisions in other areas that are not zoned non-residential. If a project comes in and it has to go through a zoning process, the city will look back at the comprehensive plan and the small area plans to make zoning decisions on those matters.
And this is Senate Bill 840 that you're talking about, that it really takes a lot of the local control away from your city council to have a voice in what goes in your neighborhood. This is something that I think the state, they wanted to implement because of the perceived shortage of housing and try to open up more housing opportunities for people in these multifamily areas. But what may happening is it taking away local control. And I've already seen various other cities or what they're trying to do to get some of that control back, but we'll see how successful that is.
No, that's an excellent point. And what we are trying to do, the bill has passed. It is effective. So I don't see a point of fighting the bill. I want to see what we can do to make sure if a project can come in by right, what standards can we apply to make sure that project could be as good as possible for the residents of Garland. So we are working on some amendments to our code to make sure those multifamily projects will have to adhere to certain standards so that they look better, they interact with their streets better, they have more amenities, things like that, to make sure those are quality developments.
I think that's a great takeaway for this episode, that your planning department is really working for you to ensure that we have the highest quality development here in Garland. Well, Nabila, I want to thank you for your time, for joining us here today. Tell us real quickly, where can residents go to learn more about active zoning cases or find maps or anything that's happening in the planning department?
Anyone can Google City of Garland active zoning case, and that page will pop up. We have improved it in the recent weeks. You can click on the map and it'll tell you exactly where the current ongoing zoning cases are. We include the ongoing cases, we include the cases that are about to go to Plan Commission, City Council, and we archive some of the recently looked at zoning cases if someone's interested. So we are trying to provide as much information as possible for our residents.
You can get information there and you can leave a comment and leave your opinion on it as well. Well, thank you again very much for joining me. I invite everyone to give us a review on iTunes or Spotify, your favorite podcast app. And remember that new episodes of Fifth Estate drop the first Monday of every month. And please go tell your friends to like and subscribe it as well. I'm Mayor Dylan Hedrick. Good night, Garland.